Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Amazon Web Services Partner Webinar Series. Our topic today will demonstrate how to simplify cost allocation reporting with CloudCheckr on Amazon Web Services. I'm your host, Maya Kabasi, with the Partner Marketing team here in Seattle. I'd like to start with a couple of housekeeping items. We are recording today's presentation, and while lines are muted, you can submit questions anytime. Use the Q&A widget in your browser to do so. We'll take time for questions at the end, so do not worry if we don't respond to your questions right away. In addition, this presentation will be available for on-demand. You may find our webinar recordings and materials available on AWS YouTube channels. I am pleased to be joined by Aaron Newman, founder of CloudCheckr, and Tom Leshevsky, Strategic Solution Architect with Amazon Web Services. Today's agenda will cover Amazon Web Services EC2 pricing, tagging, and billing, and using CloudCheckr to increase cost visibility, simplify cost tracking, and ensure cost control. We'll begin today with Tom Leshevsky, who will talk about AWS EC2, and pass the mic to Aaron Newman, who will show a demo presentation of CloudCheckr. We'll wrap up with a Q&A. So without further delay, let me turn it over to Tom Leshevsky, Strategic Solution Architect with Amazon Web Services. Take it away, Tom.
Thank you, Maya. As Maya mentioned, I'm a Strategic Solution Architect within the partnering organization working with CloudCheckr. And I'm going to just cover a bit of an introduction here on EC2, tagging, billing, just to cover some things that you may or may not be aware of, as well as some new features and services that you can take advantage of in terms of billing and tagging. Just a quick introduction on the different purchase options for EC2 in case folks aren't aware of. I mean, classically, we all think of EC2 and AWS as on-demand compute, elastic compute, and that's on demand, right? So you just pay for what you use. You can turn it off at any time. We also have the reserved instances, which are 1 or 3 year reserved instances, and I'll show you in the next page how you can reduce your cost using reserved instances as opposed to on-demand instances. The other thing we have, which people take advantage of, is spot instances. So spot instances are for those types of compute, such as an EMR job, Elastic Map Reduce, Hadoop jobs, batch processing, things that can tolerate an outage of a node, because spot instances are greatly reduced, but they're excess capacity that can go away at any point. So if you buy it, you're not guaranteed that capacity, but they can greatly reduce your costs when running things that are resilient to instances going down. And then there's dedicated instances, which has really come to the forefront recently. We reduced the cost on dedicated instances from $10 an hour down to $2 an hour. To service those people that need HIPAA compliance. So if you need an instance that resides on its own machine and there's no other customers running on that machine, more of a colo type situation, dedicated instance could be a match for you, and particularly if you're using HIPAA. So I mentioned this in terms of reserved instances, and what this slide is showing you is there's essentially 3 types of reserved instances, and you can do light, medium, and heavy. So light is really, if you're using it 20, 30% of the time, things that maybe if you're doing a POC or you're doing training on it, or if you can turn on the instance at night or on the weekends, then you would use a light utilization. And as you can see, because light has a lower cost, you achieve a return on your investment in about 3.5 to 4 months by using light utilization as opposed to on demand. So you buy it for a 3-year period, but you get your money back essentially in 3.5 months. And then a medium is a little over a year, a medium utilization. So that's around 30% up to 60-70% utilization. And that gives you that payback in about 14 months. And then a heavy utilization, the payback is about 27 months. The other thing you can do is you can actually sell those reserved instances that you're not using on an open marketplace. So let's take a quick overview of tagging and best practices. for me, tagging, having come from the computer industry a long time ago, worked on bigger systems where everything essentially needed to be identified down to a developer, down to an environment type. So who's using this? What is the cost center? What is the project? What is the application? So I'm used to really these environments where, say, if you're on a mainframe, you have to have this because compute costs so much. In fact, I remember working for a company where, as a developer, someone would come and say, you ran this particular job or you ran this application and it cost X number of dollars. So really, when you look at tagging, it's a way to monitor those costs and control costs and monitor usage. So if you're driving up usage of a certain resource, if a certain department is using a lot of compute for some reason, people can identify that. So really it's business people, departments looking at costs, environment type, that's another way to take tagging, and then project or application. So I know I'm working with some of our major systems integrators, and they want to take a look at their costs for a particular project for a particular customer. So you can do that through tagging. So really, there's a business side, like finance, we looked at tagging, and DevOps, development. The interesting thing, what we're finding right now, is that really it's DevOps using tagging a lot to identify cost and utilization. The finance people, I think perhaps maybe they're not used to having this granular level of costing and tagging and identification. I know a lot of enterprise customers running on large enterprise systems don't have any sort of insight on on-premise environments onto where their costs are going to. Is it storage? Is it compute? Is it my EMR cluster? Is it some type of batch process? Is it my database? So really, from a finance perspective, they can identify what environment, whether it's production, staging, test, or development, is driving the cost, or they can identify it by a tier that's driving the cost, as well as by product line. So I know this can be a big thing because I've run into situations where companies will say, you know what, I have this one application, this one product, and it's actually spending a lot of my IT costs, but it's delivering really limited value to the business. So I'm spending a lot on it from an IT perspective, but it's not bringing a lot of value back. And then from DevOps, obviously, I mean, this goes down to my use case I just talked about on the last slide, is who in development is running large processes or taking up a lot of compute cycles. So I think that's where development is taking a look and really using the tagging. And also you can track through status, and you can update the status of those tags to see a particular set of infrastructure moving through dev, test, QA, and into production, and what is the utilization and what is the cost as you move through those phases. So once you have those tags in place, this is where we talk about billing and how you get access to that information. So you have everything tagged. Now, you can do account activity, and you can just go online into your console and see what the account activity is. You can get a PDF invoice. You can do monthly reporting to see what your costs are for that particular month, or you can do detailed billing down to the resource level and cost allocation reporting. So obviously when we go into the detailed billing, this is where we can get that really granular look into monitoring those costs and looking at where resources are being used for along a product line or along a particular set of users in your development department. So now there's programmatic access into this detailed billing information. So once you sign up for programmatic access, a billing file, CVS file, will be written into S3. And as we all know, S3 is a very secure environment. You can use server-side encryption, and then you can do security like multi-factor authentication against that CVS file, so that that detailed billing, which is really providing a lot of insight into your environment. You won't want just anyone to have access to that. So one of the first things you would do is to sign up for programmatic access. And then the other thing, and you can see here in this slide, is how we tie what I just talked about into tagging. We have a user, which is owner. So we have a tag called owner. We have a tag called stack. We have a tag called cost center, and we have a tag called application. So you can have 10 tags for each of your services. And just we talked about EC2, but I want to make it clear that you can tag any of the AWS services. So you could have these tags, owner, stack, cost center, and then you have a value associated with it. And then you can do some really, really cool things to see, for this particular stack, how much cost is being allocated to test, dev, prod, for this particular cost center, for this particular application or owner. Now, to take it one step further, imagine this. So we just talked about within one account that you can do the tagging, you can do the cost allocation reporting, but we're getting a lot of scenarios where enterprises or large systems integrators, so take someone like an Accenture or Wipro, which is managing thousands of accounts. We have some very large customers that are managing thousands or tens of thousands of accounts. You wouldn't want that billing and information to just produce information for each account, and then you'd have to sort of roll that up and take a look at how to consolidate that information. So this is where consolidated billing comes into account, where you would then have one payer account, and all that billing information would run up, so then you can report out of it through one account. So it's good to use consolidated billing when you start to get into even like 10s or 20 type situations or accounts. So here's some other benefits of having these linked accounts through consolidated billing and having one payer account is reserved instances. So I mentioned reserved instances. So you can take advantage of those reserved instances purchases and use them across all those accounts. So reserved instances is one reason to do this. And let me get back to the slide here. And also isolating those accounts. So those accounts can be isolated especially if you're a large SI and you have various customers, you want to have them each have their own account. So one last thing I want to cover before I turn this over to Aaron and CloudCheckr is this is another thing, a resource level permissions, another feature, if you will, within AWS that you can take advantage of once you have your tagging in place. So if you're already using tagging, you can take advantage of this. One of the things we've been asked for is if you have in the traditional AWS environment without resource level permissions, if you have a developer, there's nothing to prevent that developer from going in and turning down an instance that might be a production instance, right? So now if you have your instance tagged as production, you can set permissions at a user level to say that if that person is a developer, they cannot turn down an instance that's marked or tagged as production. Okay? So this is a really powerful feature in terms of your production people will have access to your production resources. Your developers only have access to instances that are in development or test. So let's turn it over to Aaron at this point and go into a lot of detail on how you can leverage these consolidated billing and tagging in order to really take a look at what your costs are, monitor it, and take advantage of things like reserved instances.
Thanks a lot, Tom. This is Aaron Newman. I'm the founder of CloudCheckr, and I'm responsible for the technology vision and direction of CloudCheckr. So, and what I'm going to transition from what Tom was talking about, all these kind of very powerful Amazon cost features, and really talk about now how do you utilize those, how do you optimize them to make sure that you're taking full advantage of them. If we look at kind of traditional cloud usage, it's really an evolution. A lot of people start by testing a proof of concept, a trial, small projects, and they grow organically. And then you kind of look around one day and you realize a significant piece of my infrastructure is actually running on Amazon, and at that point you need to get control of those costs, and you need to get a hold of what's going on, and you have all these rich controls through Amazon, and then you want to say to yourself, well, how do I actually turn that into business decisions? How do I understand what all this rich data I have is? And a lot of that is a lot of the barrier to entry for a lot of enterprises, that fear of losing control of what's going on. So about CloudCheckr. CloudCheckr is a SaaS application and actually works with AWS to leverage the capabilities that exist there. As your AWS usage grows, tracking and controlling it gets more and more complex. And the interesting thing is, particularly the larger your install and usage gets, the more control you really need over it. So you're faced with increased complexity and increased need for control. And that's where you need to figure out, how do I use these and make intelligent decisions based on what I have running. CloudCheckr gives you that visibility. It gives you visibility into what's running on your AWS, whether that's cost, whether that's resources, whether that's utilization. It gives you that visibility. If you can't see what's going on, you can't control it, you can't make business decisions, and you can't, and you're not going to be optimized. You're not going to be doing things as well as you could be. So really what we're going to look at today, deep utilization analytics, really see what's going on, give you recommendations you can actually act on, allow you to track the controls and the costs that you've allocated. So you really need to be able to track exactly what's going on. CloudCheckr gives you what we call change monitoring, the ability to monitor changes in your resources across all the regions, including GovCloud, so that you can meet compliance regulations such as continuous monitoring. We have best practices across security, cost, availability, usage, and we have alerts and notifications. So our mission really is to give you visibility and actionable intelligence into Amazon Web Services to save you time and money. And we've actually done that already across literally hundreds of very, very complex environments. We've seen billions of objects in S3, thousands of EC2 instances, tens of thousands of EBS volumes. And as those get complex, it really becomes important that you really are able to control and understand that. So controlling your cost and tracking it, that's what we're going to focus on today. The main focus today is, how does CloudCheckr deliver visibility into cost controls, tracking, and allocation? How do you slice and dice what you have at the high level and at the low level so you can actually understand what's going on? How do you do it without having to spend weeks and weeks analyzing data? How do you do things that make it easy for you to make intelligent decisions? So we provide analytics across everything from your consolidated billing that Tom brought up, which is a very powerful thing to say, let me roll everything in my organization. I may have dozens and dozens of accounts on AWS. How do I roll that into one place that I can then treat it as a single entity? I can understand it. I can look at it in one place. So we help you provide the analytics across your consolidated billing, and as well underneath that at summary levels and at detail levels down to the individual items, because you need to. You may see a spike at your consolidated billing level, and then you need to be able to drill down to understand, well, what does that mean to me? Is that because somebody started a resource? Is that because my usage is going up for this application? What is it? So we give you purchasing recommendations to make sure you're getting the most bang for your buck. Running in the public cloud is a little bit different than running in your data center, where in your data center, once you bought a server, turning it on, leaving it on made sense. Today in the public cloud, in AWS, if you have a resource and you're not using it at night, it makes sense to turn off. So it introduces a whole new challenge to kind of operations, is how do I actually turn things off when I'm not needing them? How do I actually save costs that way, which is not something we used to do in kind of the data centers we owned. So we give you email alerts to stay aware both proactively and reactively, so you know what's going on the day-to-day activities. but you also know when something goes wrong and let you see where you're going. Those trending reports let you predict and make business decisions on what am I going to need next year versus this year and how do I prepare for that. So we're going to jump right into a live demo now. So here we go. There's a very traditional kind of a 3 or 4 second lag, so I'm going to try to keep up, but we'll see a little bit of a lag here. So here we have CloudCheckr. It's a traditional SaaS application. It's configured and linked to my AWS account. And I'm going to go over some of the ways that you can use this to optimize your costs, make sure you understand exactly what's going on. And here's kind of starting with your consolidated billing summary. You really have the ability to see all the accounts that are linked together and really be able to analyze how many accounts I have. What's my average bill look like, which accounts are really are high, which are low, which ones do I need to monitor for changes, where's my peaks. Really give you a lot of stats on what's going on, what does the month look like, how does that compare to last month, and then give you the capability to drill down into that. So I can say I want to drill down into this account, so I would click on that account, and then I get a single day summary. So we actually will provide you a real rich layer of this is when the cost occurred, not just month to date, but on a day-to-day basis. How does it compare to yesterday's costs? How do my credits and my costs figure together? Because if you're just getting a net bill of $0, that could be a cost that's just being offset by certain credits. You need to understand that. And then compare it again to next month, or not to the previous month. Look at your average day. Look at all kinds of averages to try to understand what's going on with this account. And then broken down by service, so you can then figure out what services are really costing the most. The next stage then is to go ahead and look at it on a monthly basis. So you can go ahead and say, well, what do my costs look like day by day? So I can then see, the first of the month is traditionally I get a very high bill, and then after that it kind of trails off, and I can see where it is. I can see where my highest net bill is. I can see my highest service, what my averages are looking at, when I saw those differences, and then drill down into the details even more to see on 10/3, my costs of $5 was composed of EC2 and a little bit of S3, this and that. So you really need that capability to drill down. And then you need that history to be able to understand, well, what does it look like historically? So I can see where my bill is trending over time. So you can see it both on the credits, the net bill, and the cost. So again, you have multiple levels ranging from your consolidated billing summary down to individual days, down to individual months, to a full history. So you have lots of different ways to take the rich data, the detailed billing files that Amazon creates for you, really analyze it and understand what's going on. And then you can start to begin to actually interactively query the data. So you can go ahead and come in here and say, well, I want to know for the past 2 weeks exactly by hour, I want to group by my account what it looks like. You can filter by tags. So the tags that Tom brought up, you can actually come in here and say, I want to pick a specific tag, customer 1, 2, or 3, or environment, or pick a specific resource, pick a product, whatever it is you set your tags up for, and actually see what does that look like. So you come in here, and we've, again, pulled all your detailed billing files out and basically put it into a database where now you can interactively look at what's going on. So you can see down here, I see a spike on this day. I can analyze what's this spike. It's the end of the month spike where you get a bunch of bills coming through, and you can see that's mostly composed of account 2150. You can even click on it, and it will download your billing detailed file, and you can see the full Excel of exactly what's made up behind that. So it really makes it much easier than trying to download the files manually into an Excel spreadsheet, trying to do a bunch of work there. And gives you everything min, max, all the data that you could need to try to figure out what you're looking for. We also have these save filters where you can go ahead and create your filters and say, I want to come back in here and I'm always going to be looking at things by day, by service. So I want to go ahead and pull that up. I can pull up my save filters. I can even click on that so I can tell it, okay, start emailing that to me on a daily basis, because I want to see for this product ABC, I want to get a daily email that updates me on how those costs are looking. So, and then you can, again, come down here and look exactly where it goes across time, by day, by hour. I can click into any of that, and I can see what my groups look like. How does my RDS versus S3 versus EC2 cost look like? So, and you can even do that on a resource-by-resource basis. So I have another save filter where I'm pulling up for a specific instance exactly what the cost looks like. So you can look here and you can see these are when this EC2 instance was running, exactly the costs that were getting incurred at exactly the time. And it's actually grouped by operation type, by operation type, so you can actually see what are the operations that are incurring it. So we're not getting a lot of in and out traffic costs. It's all just for running the instances, our cost there. You could do that on an instance, or you can even do that, for instance, on a bucket. Any resource you can filter and look at what the costs are. So here we're pulling up an S3 bucket, and it will show you exactly what the costs for those buckets are. So you can see here, I have costs like S3 Glacier transition cost, my reduced redundancy cost, my Glacier storage cost for running list bucket commands. So it gives you a real fine-grained view of exactly where your costs are. You can see them spiking. You can see this date here, October 5th, is when everything spikes. So it gives you a lot of capabilities to understand exactly what's going on. And then it even allows you to group them in a lot of different ways. So I could say I want to see all my different products that I've tagged. I actually want to pull those up, and I want to see exactly what each product is. So it's not just based on account or service or region, but it also uses those powerful tags that Tom talked about, the ability to do cost allocation tagging and then to see what it looks like. And so here we see across that, my widgets product incurred $36, my whatchamacallit product incurred that, and product ABC incurred that. So it gives you that capability, and then you can even then do that by customer. So, again, it takes whatever you've configured as your tag capability and allows you to go ahead and pull up that on an ongoing basis, email it to you. So, again, you could just click the email button up here, and that email button will then each night go ahead and send you an email that will alert you, highlight anything that's going up or down, as well as actually just give you, what your costs were throughout the day. So once you've done a decent job of actually understanding what your costs are, then you want to start optimizing your spend. So spend optimization is a very big component of all this. So that has a combination of resource utilization, looking at that versus other things like spot and reserve that Tom introduced. So let's go ahead and pull up our EC2 spend summary. And this will show you what your reserved instances look like. So it'll actually give you an analysis of your reserved instances, what you have configured today, actually look at what you're running, and of course, I think my network connection's having some issues. And compare that to exactly what you would look like if you convert it to spot, and it will actually give you some recommendations on if you use spot, which instances would make the most sense to go to spot, which instances would make the most sense to go to a 3-year utilization, which instance would make the most sense to go to medium, and in traditional presentation fashion, everything's slowing down. So here we go. So here is our reserved instance summary. So you can go ahead and say, okay, what do I have for reserved instances? I have 8 reserved instances. How many are being unused? How many reserved instances am I not using correctly? And how many on-demand instances should I actually convert to use reserved instances? And it breaks it down by region, by size, by utilization level. And then within that, you can actually look at the actual details that are going on. So you can go see these are all my reserved instances. Any of these with the down arrow means it's not fully utilized, meaning I'm basically wasting resources. So here's a case of where I have an instance count of 1, and I'm using none of them. So I should actually go find something or spin this up, particularly if it's heavy utilization, because I'm going to pay for it anyways. Here's one that's actually being utilized properly. So it actually lets you come in here and exactly see what you're utilizing well and what you're not utilizing well. And then beyond that, you can go ahead and get a recommendation of reserved instance purchases. So you can see how many are unused, and then how many recommended that you used, and then a breakdown by individual availability zones, types, platforms, shows you what the upfront cost was, what would be your monthly savings by buying this, and what's your break even. So it really gives you really fine level details of what's going on, and you can analyze that both at a 3-year or a 1-year level because your upfront cost differs, and so it depends a lot on your business situation. Do I want to invest in a 3-year commitment or a 1-year commitment? But now you actually have the true break even, the monthly savings, all the details you need to actually make the right decisions for this. EC2 utilization, cost utilization, so you can go ahead and look at this and say, this is my instances and what I'm using them. So I can see instances that are running underutilized, under 20%, versus what's kind of a regular utilization, 20 to 75%. And as well, if you were overutilized with any, you'd get a breakdown of those. You'd be able to see what your monthly cost for those are, and then be able to try to lower that, because you want your monthly utilization, your cost utilization should be as high as possible. You want to be able to use every resource you can, and you'll even see what are your instances that are costing you the most by underutilized, and what are the ones that are running at the lowest monthly CPU utilization. So you can understand, should I be downsizing those instances? Should I be perhaps consolidating jobs onto a single instance? Things like that. So here, your comparison summary actually shows you if you converted everything in your scenario, in your environment, into a single, a type of reserved instance, what would be your cost, your total cost for 36 months, versus, if you could get everything spot, this $6,000 a month, or $6,000 for 3 years would become $1,400 for 3 years. This is not always the case. It depends on your business situation. So you may say instead, if I wanted to move everything to light, I would save about $1,800 by doing that. But it gives you the months to break even. So even if you're not going to have a 3-year commitment, if you know you're going to at least have 1 year, you're going to break even in 9 months. So it gives you a little bit more information to understand what you should be doing. Does that on an instance basis as well, so you can go ahead in here and say, this specific instance, I want to come in here and see, what would the average spot price cost me to run this, versus what is it costing me on demand, and which one of these would I choose to actually optimize or minimize my cost, optimize them. So, and then we have warnings. Again, so it'll give you the capability to go in here and see, what am I using and what kind of money is this costing me? Do I have a bunch of unused elastic IP addresses that are costing me? Unattached EBS volumes, stopped EBS volumes, or EBS volumes attached to stopped instances, unused elastic load balancers. So just lots of things that you can go through and kind of clean up. Basically keep your house clean on keeping your resource usage down, because every resource you are using can be, if you can stop it from being used, if you don't need it, it saves you money. So we do that across all the resources. So as well, you're running RDS. You want a summary there as well to know, should I be investing in reserved instances there. So the same type of report where I can see immediately how many active reserved instances I have purchased, how many are unused, and how many should I be buying. Then again, I can look directly at the reserved instances. I can see exactly which ones are not fully utilized. I can see none of my DB instances are utilizing these. So I know to go purchase, I know that I need to do something, either sell that on the marketplace, move instances that are in different availability zones into this one, resize instances to take advantage of these reserved instances. And on the other side, what do I have to purchase? These are the specific purchases that I need to make to maximize my or to minimize my costs around RDS. Same thing on the RDS level, the comparison summary to show me a total price of what my environment's costing today running on demand and what it would cost under the different resource utilization models. Same thing for Elasticache and for Glacier. You just have cost, basically lots of tools to help you analyze and figure out what your costs look like. Here's a typical S3 summary report, cost summary report, show you what your storage costs are running, show you how much of that is reduced redundancy, and what are you saving by using reduced redundancy. How much of that is your Glacier storage, and how much could you say, or how much are you saving by using Glacier? And even on your warnings report, that's where you can actually get the type of things that say, if you could move files to reduce redundancy, this is what your savings would be. If you could move your items to Glacier, this is what your savings would be. If you could move your S3 buckets into a cheaper region, this is what your savings would be. So again, just giving you the right tools to understand what's going on. So around resource utilization, you also want to know, am I buying MX larges when I should be buying mediums? M1 larges when I should be buying mediums. So we give you the resource utilization across your entire organization. Again, by tag, for instance, if you had tags set up, you could come in here and say, for my tag prod, for my prod environment, everything you had tagged prod, you can come in here and look at what does my resource utilization look like. And you actually see, as an average, where is my resource utilization running at? And here it is by instance type, by resource utilization to see how much of your time is running at certain CPU levels. I can see it by hour of the day, so I can actually see. At night, is my resource utilization peaking? And maybe that's time when I can shut down instances. And by day of the week. So you can actually see here, Saturday and Sunday are the low times. In the middle of the week, I'm actually seeing increases in utilization. So you can do that on a kind of on a big level with your tag filtering or your instance type filtering, but you would also do it on an instance by instance basis. Say, okay, I want to look at this specific instance, and here's the cost. Here's what my resource utilization looks like for the last 30 days. Here is the number of, here's how much CloudWatch data I have collected. Here's what my CPU utilization looks like. These are the spikes, so I know when it's spiking. Here's what it looks like by hours of the day. So again, I can do some analysis of, hey, maybe I don't need this up running in the middle of the night, or here's by day of the week. So it gives you lots of rich ways to look at your utilization and try to make business decisions. Here's even a heat map of it, so you can actually see when it was running. The red means it was spiking. The blue means it was kind of cold and the server wasn't overutilized. So again, you could do that for all your instances, by a tag or by a specific instance. So lots of ways to analyze your data. You could do that across your EBS volumes, across your RDS, across your Elastic Load Balancers, and we even highlight idle instances. So, and then on this account, we have no idle instances. So different ways to analyze your resource utilization to try to keep that where it should be. And you can even look, we'll look through here one more time, and I'll show you. We even have recommendations that help you pick your recommendation. This instance should be converted to spot because it's only running 7% of the time. So again, that's an instance that's not highly dependent on being up all the time. So it probably is something that strongly could be recommended. You could convert to spot and actually save a lot of money there. So, and here's even the price. So there's your resource utilization. You have trending, so you can actually see what it looks like by time. So you can come into your instance history by time. You can actually see how many hours you're running across time. So you can do that by day or by hour. So I could say, you know what, I want to see over the last week, and I want to see it by instance type. I want to see what my what I look like for M1 larges. What was I running over the last week? I wasn't M1 extra large. So I can come into here and I can actually see these are the instances I was running during those time periods. I can actually click on that and drill down and actually see that this instance ID was running for 8 hours on the 7th. I can even drill further down into that and see specifically what was happening there, average number of hours, average number of instances. So, I can see my S3 trending. So I can start to see over time where's my S3 files look. So I could see, basically we take a snapshot of what your S3 looks like each day, the metadata basically, and allow you to map out where is my growth going? What does my S3 install look like today? How much storage am I using per bucket, per region? How much of that is RRS? How much of that is Glacier? How much of that is standard storage? And help you map that so you can actually plan out and understand where you're going. So we do that across all the different Amazon resources, RDS, Glacier, S3, EC2. I'll give you different ways to see what's going on. So, Change monitoring. This is an interesting feature that actually allows you to know when something's changing. So you can actually come in here and say, and see, what EC2 instances were added, modified, security groups added, or rules added. I can actually come in here and see exactly what was added. I could see there was a rule added with, with a no port. EBS volumes added. So it gives you the ability to actually audit what's going on in your EC2 or in your AWS environment, help you meet regulations like continuous monitoring, which is a big part of GovCloud, and any government organization really is mandated to provide continuous monitoring. So there's a lot of capabilities here. You can come in here and again, search on a specific bucket. So this is one of my buckets. So I could say for this bucket, I want to actually see all the changes. So let me go back a little bit so I can say where all the changes have happened. There's nothing for that bucket. So yeah. So it just gives you that capability, that change monitoring capability to continue to see what's going on. Now, best practices. This is, again, as you're using AWS, it's often hard to keep up with making sure you have every configuration option set properly. So we've put together hundreds of best practices, and these are things that were very traditional, things that we had to do in our data center in the past. Now, as we are adopting AWS, we need to start using these same standards around this. So, we have a best practice around availability. Everything from, are you setting up multiple availability zones so that if there's an outage in one, you're properly, you can properly stay up. So everything from availability zone distribution to, are you taking backups? Are you taking snapshots? Do you have healthy instances running? Are you using VPCs? Are you experiencing any errors in the client or the system? Are you seeing errors that you might not even know? If you have 1,000 servers, how do you actually monitor for errors in your console output? Or how do you monitor for instances that are going down or up? It becomes complex. So, how do you get notified when your RDS instance is running out of space? So the larger your environment, the harder it is to monitor and manage those. So we give you that capability, and what we're giving you is a lot of the things, so you don't have to think about every different scenario that could happen. So you could think about RDS. Is my RDS utilization going to run out, or my RDS space going to run out? But the real challenge is, did you think about the 30 things that could happen that could cause you problems? And that's what's built into our best practices, the knowledge around what are the 30 things you got to monitor so that you'll be alerted when something happens. So, you have your cost best practices, everything from, are you using reserved instances properly? Do you have idle resources running? So are you using, how much could you save from using Glacier? Looking at your cost allocation tags and giving you alerts when you see spikes. So lots of things that allow you to sleep at night and know that you'll be alerted when something happens in your environment. Security, the same way. You look at everything from your security groups at both your database level, your VPC level, your EC2 level. Look at your security groups and find any that are not blocking traffic properly. And any kind of traditional mistake. We see people make these type of mistakes as well. As you set up a security group and you set up a 0 as your CIDR bit mask, when really that opens up your environment to everybody, when really what you meant is a 32. So, and this is a very low-level technical detail, but it can cost your security you can really get burned with security if you do things wrong. So that's what we provide, that level of detail to make sure that you're aware of where your vulnerabilities are. Do I have a vulnerability in my MySQL database? And we give you kind of the high level, this is, it needs a patch, and then a bunch more information like, what do I need to do in RDS to actually go make sure that I'm upgrading my version to the proper one. So, and then usage, everything from, are your reserved instances expiring? Do you have server certificates that are expiring? Do you have server access logs that are growing out of control? Are you tagging all your resources? So, there's a lot of fine-grained control, so I can say these don't apply to my organization. So let me go ahead and ignore that check, and that check goes away. So, or you could say, you know what, this I realize this guy is this EC2 instance is not launched as EBS using IOPS, but you know what, that's what I meant, so I'm going to just ignore that check. So you have that capability to provide a lot of control, so you can actually use this in a very usable manner as your environment gets more and more complex. So now let's switch back. So that's the tool, and there's, I could go on for hours and hours really on covering more of the services and the visibility we give you into that, some of our dashboards, custom reports, map overlays, all kinds of different features, but really limited time today to show you all that. So let's just go back to the slides. And now, so pricing. So we, so it's a traditional SaaS application. So much like Amazon, there's no upfront commitments. It's no upfront costs. There's no lock-ins. And the first month is $49, no matter what your environment looks like, and then it's easily tiered after that. So it's very price cost effective. We have support for GovCloud, and we have a big push for GovCloud because it really makes a lot of sense as these government organizations want to get into the cloud to be able to leverage a specific region dedicated to them. We have support for managed service providers, for enterprises, for professional service organizations. So, different features that make sense for different organizations. We have it. So, and as well, we have kind of a special today. If you want to go out there and get 1 month free for CloudCheckr Pro, just enter in when you register for it, webinar, and you'll get the first month free. So, I strongly encourage you, go out to www.cloudcheckr.com. We love feedback too. So, as you're using the application, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know how you like it, what other features and everything you'd need, and how you're doing with it. So, I'd love to hear from you. And I'm going to turn it back over to Maya now.
Thank you very much, Aaron. And it's time for Q&A. I already see that we have quite a few questions from our audience. Thank you for your presentation once again, on how to simplify cost allocation reporting with CloudCheckr on Amazon Web Services. So let's begin by taking a few questions here. I would like to start with one that says, we use high utilization reserved instances and we use tags to allocate costs to internal cost centers. AWS charges us for high utilization reserve instances at the beginning of the month, and it ignores the tags as it's not associated with an instance. How do I allocate costs in such a case?
Tom, do you know that at all, or you want me to try to answer that?
You can take that. I wasn't sure if I was quite clear on the question.
Right. Yeah. Do you actually have the question in? So it sounds like when you buy reserved instances, there's a lot of interesting things that happen with tags. And Tom, you can support me on some of this stuff or help. When you buy it, particularly a heavy reserved utilization, so there's 3 costs. The first is going to be your upfront cost. So you may pay $2,500 for a high availability instance. You pay $2,500 upfront. Now, you can actually tag. One of the new features that we've seen recently is you can actually tag your reserved instance purchase. So that upfront thing you can tag. Then what happens with heavy utilization reserved instances, you're pretty much committed to paying for that whether you use it or not. So on the first of the month, your bill is going to be hit with 720 hours, which is 30 times 24, 30 days in a month, 24 hours. You're pretty much going to be hit with the full charge on the first of the month. Then as you use it through the month, you're actually not going to incur any costs. So it does become a little bit tricky to actually track that on a day-to-day basis. And that's one of the things that we have in the tool is what we call amortized costs. And it's still in beta, so just that warning. But the ability to amortize those costs across your period of time so exactly, you can see kind of, my costs yesterday, they're not all lumped on the first of the month or the date you purchased the reserved instance, but you kind of want to amortize them across the date. But that is how you're going to see it in your detailed billing is the first of the month you're going to see a huge charge because it's a heavy utilization. If it's a medium or a light utilization, it'll get spread out and used by the hours that you use. So in your detailed billing file, in your CloudWatch data, billing data, it will be reflected on the day or hour that it was used. I hope that answers the question. I think that's what they were asking.
Thanks,
yeah, Aaron, this is Tom. I think you exactly hit on it, and I just wanted to add to that, and that's one of the huge benefits just working with CloudCheckr is that we provide you a lot of information, a lot of data, but in order to slice and dice and make sense of it and do reporting off it and do trending, CloudCheckr can just add so much value in that regard. I mean, I've even seen people try to spin up a Hadoop cluster in order to do some of this, but makes sense to utilize CloudCheckr in order to get insight into things that we might not provide the detail on.
Next question, Maya.
Next question. It's a little bit long. Let me read it to you guys and see. And this is for Aaron. Just from a billing perspective, does availability zone like 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1E matter while reserving instances, especially when you have a consolidated account spanning multiple accounts?
So there, Tom, I have an answer to this. I'll let you take it if you'd like.
Sure. I mean, I think my answer hopefully is going to be the same.
Yeah.
That's one of the benefits of using consolidated billing, and I think it might have been on one of the slides. Is that when you do purchase a reserved instance, it is associated with a particular availability zone. So if you have one account and they're operating a lot in the one AZ, that's fine. But when you have multiple accounts and you want to leverage across multiple AZs, when you do the linked accounts, consolidated billing, then you can share those reserved instance purchases across accounts and therefore across AZs as well.
Yeah. So let me add a little bit of color, if that's okay, Tom, to your so availability zones. What's interesting is 1A, availability zone 1A in one of my accounts, in my account, does not map necessarily to Tom's availability zone 1A in his account, or even across consolidated billing accounts too. So your question is, I think, a very good question, which is, as you purchase reserved instances, you got to be real careful, right? You got to make sure that you're purchasing them in the right availability zone. Now, just recently, Amazon added a really cool feature that allows me to go ahead and change the availability zone. It used to be once you buy it for an availability zone, that's really one physical location. Availability zone is kind of like a physical location. Once you buy it there, it's kind of like you were stuck. Now they have the capability to move it, but even if you buy it and you move it, you got to make sure that they're matched the right way, because if I buy an availability zone, if I buy it in 1A in my and now what's interesting though is that across consolidated billing accounts, even though they're actually physically different locations, the way the billing program from Amazon works is that it still maps 1A to 1A. So if you go buy it in 1A, even though it could technically be a different data center that the server is running in, consolidated billing is intelligent enough to say, you know what, you bought it in 1A over here, that may be down the street from 1A in your second account under consolidated billing, but you know what, we have to map them together. So we're going to give you the benefit of that and allow you to do that. But if you're trying to do it in 1B in one account and a reserved instance in 1A in a different account, they're not going to map together. You're not going to get the benefit of that reserved instance. So you have to be real careful about how you buy your reserved instances. So
Thank you, Aaron. One more question. How much of history do you store?
Well, so I guess that's a question depend on, we store it we basically store it as long as we keep it. So, we have some customers with 2 years of data, and it keeps going. So what it is, so there's two pieces of that. One is billing data and one is resource utilization. So Amazon keeps, as much billing data as you need too. Now CloudWatch data, which is what we do for resource utilization, we actually CloudWatch is limited to 2 weeks of data just because they're doing so much high processing stuff that they can't keep a lot more than that. So we don't have quite the richness of pure data that CloudWatch has, but we provide the summary that allows you to make business decisions, enough summary, and so that we can keep it for years. So, and the way we keep the data is designed so that it doesn't become a problem. So we have it as long as it's needed.
Thank you, Aaron. One more question to you. Cost allocation is a pain point for us, but do you also go beyond allocation? Do you make sizing recommendations? Do you offer cost modeling for building predictive models for planning purposes?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That's what some of the reports that I kind of went over hopefully showed, was that if you go, here, you need to figure out, how many hours was I running all my instances, in what region and what availability zone, and then be able to predict what's the best reserved instance type to buy. Is it a heavy? Is it a light? Is it a 1 year? Is it a 3 year? Or am I better off going with spot instances? So exactly, I think that question hits on exactly what a couple of our reports show you is we have some really rich, powerful options from Amazon. The question is, how do you make the right business decision? And hopefully that's what CloudCheckr provides you, is the tools to actually have some visibility and to make the best decision you can based on what you know.
Thank you very much, Aaron. And we are running out of time. We have a few more questions, but CloudCheckr will reach out to the audience with answers to those questions via email. One thing I would like to address is that the presentation is available on demand, and you will receive an email about it with a URL tomorrow, so you can watch it or share it. And a special thanks to our presenters, Aaron Newman from CloudCheckr and Tom Leshevsky with AWS. And to our attendees, thank you very much for taking the time, and I hope you found the information useful. And before you log off, please do take a very brief survey just so we can improve ourselves. And just simply click on the link that I will show you, that you will see on your browser right there, and that will take you to a page where you can complete it. And thank you again for joining us, and this concludes our today's presentation.